Yeah.
Then you're doing it all for, you
Yeah.
know, Carol's doing it all for her bad skin. She's
Mm-hmm.
doing yoga because she's got bad eczema. She's
Mm-hmm.
because she's overweight and
Yeah.
she's got a heart condition. That shouldn't really be the object of
Yeah. It
practicing.
should be selfless and not selfish.
Yeah,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah. The
Mm-hmm.
object of the practice should be self-realization.
Yeah.
Should be like, call it what you want: nirvana, samadhi, liberation, kaivalya, moksha, jivamukti. Loads of names they've got for it, but there's not one of the texts says, unless you get to hatha yoga, and hatha yoga texts are fairly recent, that you should practice for your health.
Mm-hmm.
And there's very few pranayamas you practice for your health.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you look at the reasons for practicing pranayama, a lot of them are soteriological, they're for enlightenment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's, I mean, I argue with people a lot about this because a lot of people nowadays see yoga as a means to good health.
Yeah.
But do you know what? If you want to get fit and you want your body to be strong and healthy, there's a lot quicker, more efficient ways than doing it than yogasana.
Yeah.
Yogasana is a really slow, painful way of doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Slow and painful. Yeah.
It's hard work. Yeah.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Totally.
Whereas if you do Joe Wicks' 30-minute workout every day, every second day, and cycle regularly and walk, you'll get fitter.
Yeah.
Fitter quicker.
Yeah, because also in your classes, because your classes are very dynamic and vigorous and hard most of the time. That's for you that you have the same intention. Also, that's karma you're working with, right?
Yeah. If you've only got an hour and a half every day to do it, you might as well do something worthwhile.
Yeah.
And until you get older and it doesn't do. As you get older, you realize that your practice will go from very dynamic to pranayama.
Yeah.
When you're really old, when you're younger, it'll be a lot of asana.
Yeah.
And then when you're older, there'll be hardly any asana, but lots of pranayama.
Yeah.
You just got to go through those stages of your life.
Yeah.
And go through those stages of yoga. And if you can still do jump backs and Vipada Shirshasana when you're 85, fantastic. But most people, as long as they can breathe at 85, they'll be quite happy.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? If they're still alive. If I see 85, I'll be well happy, you know.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends never saw 25, so
yeah.
Sometimes feel like an imposter that I'm still here at the best of times. So.
I'm glad you are, Stu. I am glad you are. You know, but did you always teach really dynamic classes, those two, or was it all? From the very beginning?
I was brought up in Ashtanga Vinyasa high school, and I was brought up with I actually didn't really connect that much with the Patabi Joyce thing, and I had my doubts about Patabi Joyce, even though I did the sequences that he taught, and I went with Hamish Henry, who was one of his leading teachers, and I went to Hamish's every morning for a long time, and I went from being partially disabled to being reasonably adept. And moving through primary, second, and working through those asanas up until some advanced jiva classes. And that's one good thing I liked about David's classes. They were vigorous. You know what I mean? You worked hard.
Yeah.
You had a good laugh, but they were physically hard.
Yeah.
And they weren't the same thing all the time. The reason why it's dynamic is because you have to have some degree of health to be in service to other people.
Yeah.
And if you're just doing, I refuse to use the word yin yoga, right? I never use the word yin. If you do restorative yoga and you're doing slow yoga and soft yoga, and what Sharon used to call moms and pops yoga, when you do moms and pops yoga, where you can have a cup of tea and a little chat in between postures, if you do that, you'll never maintain a level of fitness and health that will make sure that you can look after other people and other people don't have to look after you. And I had been looked after for so long when I couldn't walk properly, and when I was crippled. There's so many girls come into my life and went out of my life, and so many relationships where people looked after me, and my family looked after me, and other people. But I eventually thought, well, if I'm going to do something for an hour and a half every morning, and maybe an hour at night, 2.5 hours every day. That's almost more than a half a day a week of my whole week. Doing some exercise. I'm going to make sure it's worthwhile.
Yeah.
And I think in that hour and a half when you have with me, if you can do an hour and 10 minutes of really dynamic stuff,
absolutely,
that's enough for one day.
Yeah.
And you can go for a walk in the woods or go on your feet's pad and go for a cycle later on or do something else.
Yeah.
And I think that's the purpose of making it so dynamic. And there's a good article in Yoga Journal in America about that, about why the guy understands why we do double dip chaturangas.
Yeah.
I think that's the name of the article.
Yeah.
Why double dip chaturanga?
I read that. Yeah.
For you.
Yeah.
And he wrote that article after doing my class, and he was a really advanced teacher, and he struggled.
Yeah.
Because he didn't do it every day, whereas you do it every day, and now you've got the hang of it.
Yeah.
Now you get stronger, and you realize, well, you just breathe, don't you?
Yeah. And it's like this whole like sort of what you're saying as well. Like there is a spirit. It's very, it's spiritual. Like it's like there's something going on. Like it's
you work with the koshas, you work with the chakras, you work with the koshas, you work with you work with the three bodies: the casual body, the subtle body. You work with the physical body.
Yeah.
And then it ends. And to be really honest, and a lot of people leave before they get to this point. If they just be patient and they keep doing it 6 days a week, and they do it 27 days a month or whatever.
Yeah.
After a while, it does become really easy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And well, the effortlessness of it or something, it's something that, you feel like, wow. And I mean, that's what I loved about, meeting you, being in your classes and seeing even after 6 months, like you see your own growth, like, what the fuck? I didn't even know I could do this, and that's
and then
so
if you go
nice.
to someone else's class, then you get a realization of where you are.
Yeah.
A lot of people used to say to my teachers, who taught you? Who taught you? And they're like that. Why? It goes, because you've got really strong practice. And they're like me, and they're like, I thought it would be him.
Yeah.
Like, well, that's good, because they might not be some people might not be the most flexible people in the world, but if you can give them strength, you can make people flexible.
Absolutely. That's a really good point.
The classes, when you get really flexible people with hypoextension in their back, it's really hard to make them strong.
Yeah.
Whereas you can start getting strong people more flexible.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important for both those sort of people to understand. There's a few people in my class just now who can do anything.
Yeah.
If you ever meet ballerinas when they get older, they can barely move their wrists and their knees.
But that's something anyway. You should watch something now, because it might not be a problem now, but it could be a problem in 10 years or 20 years.
No, that's really important for teaching. A lot of that's neglected in modern yoga.
Yeah.
And modern postural yoga teachers, you can almost see modern teachers like the way they are with hypermobile people. It's like, well, look at Amy. Just do this. Just do this, Amy. Do the splits. Do that. And you're like, well, that's really wrong, because Amy, when she gets to 50, is going to have like rheumatoid arthritis. Her hips might need replacing.
Yeah.
And if you ever have the opportunity and people come to you at that age, this is again anecdotal and again mixed with doctors' advice that I've heard different doctors talk about. Don't advise them to take drugs for rheumatoid arthritis. Drugs make, if you're hypermobile and you went through your whole life being totally flexible, and you start getting rheumatoid arthritis in your 50s and early 60s, don't take drugs for it, because the drugs make it a lot worse.
Yeah.
Get them to do asana. Get them to do asana, but not complex asana.
Yeah.
Asanas that will strengthen them.
Yeah.
That's what Iyengar says as well. And I heard a doctor on radio talking about rheumatoid arthritis and hypermobility one day, and he said the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of, and I know we're not allowed to give like medical advice, but you can always say, in my experience from the people I've taught, and people who come to me for privates, one-to-ones, I've taught them for a long period of time, 12, 15 years. Hypermobilities, as much across as much a burden as a cross in your shoulders as being stiff and having short hamstrings or having a back problem. People with back problems can get better. I know they can. People with back problems can get strong backs again. People with hypermobility can't get strong unless they exercise.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
They have to exercise physically and with a discipline, a tapas.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's really important in modern yoga.
And because you mentioned this a lot in your classes, the modern yoga teachers, because I feel like you've been around for so long now, like teaching so long. Is the reason also why you started your own teacher training program, because it was kind of like a response to what you were seeing was going on in the yoga industry where you just disagreed with?
Yeah, I can be really honest with you, and I can be really honest because I know you understand a bit about modern yoga, whether it's in Amsterdam or London or elsewhere. But one of the most disappointing, most demoralizing things about modern yoga is the standard of teacher training. Mine's included, my own included. Like, to me, I've lobbied Yoga Alliance to make it 500 hours. Like, you must either have 3 years experience in right and provable, and you must have 500 hours. I know a guy that did Jiva training and he had done yoga for a week.
Yeah.
I know quite a few people have done Jiva training and they've had
I always felt like they're just buying a certificate, you know, like literally. I mean,
they've got the same certificates as me and you.
That's I just feel
that's why it's demoralizing. That's why and that whole standard has now gone from up here. From when I started, a lot of the teachers were really high quality. There was there was Chuck, there was Nancy Gilgoff, there was David Svensson, Doug Svensson. These are all the teachers you could see at all the big events. Jörg Feuerstein, Baron Baptiste, even, you know, Baron Baptiste. He's a good teacher. You know, all the, you know, Michael, what's he called? It's right here. Matthew Sweeney. You know, like, they're good teachers. They've been about for years, and they were, you know, all the younger ones, Louis Steinberg and all those teachers. They're great teachers. Beryl Bender Birch. You know, the standard was quite high, and I thought, well, that's given me something to aspire to. And now I realize, like, I got a bit dispirited about all that and like the standard of modern yoga teaching, and it's definitely disintegrated into, as you say, you buy a certificate. And whether you go to Mumbai with Swami Radhanath and Sharon Gannon, or you come to me and you got a 200-hour certificate, it shouldn't mean that you can teach yoga. It just should mean that you got an introduction to yoga. 200 hours should just say you've got a certificate of introduction. And when you give it to an insurance company, they shouldn't insure you. They shouldn't insure you.
And when you when you're saying, like, you know, you find it a bit disheartening and all that kind of stuff, and 200 hours, do you give these teachers advice like, hey man, you really need to start?
And you don't listen. A week later, they've got their own websites and they're teaching.
Because what is the advice you give them, Stu?
I say you're better. I went to Lafayette, to Jiva, the first one upstairs, above, what was the name of the gym? Crunch. You ever heard of Crunch? Yeah, Crunch was downstairs.
Okay, cool.
You could hear all these guys lifting weights, and we were upstairs. And we were up in the big studio in Jiva. And I always think, like, well, I went there and I went to Uma's classes, Ruth's classes, David. I didn't really like too many of them, actually. I like David. I used to go to David's a lot. I used to hang out with, just like hanging out with your mate, you know what I mean? So just like, but like quite a few of those teachers, and I spent quite a while in Williamsburg with different teachers. I'd go to Dharmamitra before Andy went to Dharmamitra, and you'd go to like just different places apart from Jiva as well. And so like when I finished, they said, well, come to Woodstock and just stay with us there. If you've got nowhere to stay, live in Woodstock. And I said, no, I want to live in New York. But I ended up staying at Brahmananda Ashram.
Ah, nice.
Yeah,
Love
yeah, I
that
went out
ashram.
there.